Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. We are playing here some Genshin Impact. And the reason for that is earlier this week, Genshin has been in the news a little bit this week because they just had another big update that added a whole new region and stuff like that. And so I'd been seeing articles about it, so it was kind of in my brain a little bit. But what really kicked it off was I saw an article about Destiny 2 from Gamescom. And how they said that from now on, for Destiny 2, they're no longer going to be removing any future content. Or, past content that hasn't been removed yet. So they're no longer going to be removing anything. Which is great, except, they've already removed a lot of stuff. Now, maybe that means they're interested in somehow bringing back that older content, since I assume it's not, like, gone forever. But, for now, there's no way to play, like, the original Destiny 2 campaign.
Leave it all to me.
And that bums me out, because I was like, oh, it would have been really cool to just do a Let's Play of, like, the whole Destiny 2 campaign. And I was like, well, it's a little strange to do a Let's Play of, like, a live service game like that, that's continually ongoing and things like that. But I did it for Final Fantasy XIV, and that's still ongoing. And so that's when my brain jumped over to Genshin Impact, which is another sort of ongoing sort of game, live service game. And I thought, wouldn't it be wild, or interesting at least, to do a Let's Play of Genshin Impact? Not that I'm the first person to have such a thought, obviously. But obviously Genshin is a massive, massive game. Many, many, many things to do. But there is just, like, a main story that you can do. And it turns out that if you just do the, if the only thing you show on camera is the main story, it's really not that massive of a Let's Play. So that's what I started recording this week. And as an additional thing, I was like, well, I don't want to... I have to, I'm going to be making a fresh account to do this.
Get them.
And
I'll catch up.
I know that I've tried to get some other people into playing Genshin, but they've been resistant because they just think that it's like this mobile pay-to-win kind of bullshit. And it's not. I mean, you can play through the whole game pretty much without spending a penny. So I was like, why don't I just do that? For anyone that's really curious. Rather than kind of feeding into that stereotype, why don't I do it free to play? So that's what I've been doing. I've yet to spend a penny during this Let's Play. And, you know, on my original account, I spent, I don't know, probably around $100 total. I can't remember exactly. It was not an overwhelming amount. And I definitely have more characters on that account, but really it's like, I've been having a blast just playing through all this content that I pretty much already have played through a couple years ago, but I've been having a lot of fun, all entirely for free, and it's really good. So that is what brought it up for Two Brothers Play. Lego recently borrowed my super ultra wide monitor, 32x9. He finally got it like connected, and he was looking for games to play in 32x9. I was like, well, I think Genshin supports it. Why don't you give that a try? It's free. So yesterday when he came over, he was like, oh yeah, Genshin seems pretty wild. It definitely works in 32x9. And then he was like, he said something about how it's like the gameplay is kind of weird, like you're just pressing like keyboard buttons. That's all you do. And I'm like, what? And for one, I was like, well, you're gonna want to play with a controller most likely, but I'm not really sure what he meant. And then later, after the stream, he was like, "Oh, does Genshin work on the Steam Deck?" And I knew he was going to ask me that because he had just gotten the Steam Deck, so he's always looking for stuff to try out on it. And so I had looked it up, and I'm like, "Well, it does, but you know, it's not on Steam, so you have to install Windows on the Steam Deck to make it run." But apparently, people are playing it. And he looked very confused then. He's like, it's not on Steam. What the hell did I install? Because he apparently said he's been playing Genshin on Steam. And I'm like, it's definitely not on Steam. And he's like, it was something, Impact the Third. And I'm like, Honkai Impact Third is like their previous game or something like that. Definitely not Genshin. So yeah, apparently he had been playing a completely different game. But he's going to try out Genshin, and we're going to see if he is even interested in playing. If he is, then next Two Brothers Play, we're going to do some co-op. The game's not really built around co-op in any meaningful way, but you can do a lot of different activities together. So for a stream or two, it could be fun.
Oh, it's ripping nice and spicy.
Yeah, so that's that.
All in a day's work.
Otherwise, on this channel, we have had a bunch of RimWorld. And we've had a bunch of Cataclysm. And we've had a bunch of best games of all time. So I think after some point of Cataclysm, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how many videos I recorded for it, but some point in the near future, I'll probably start uploading the Genshin Let's Play. Like I said, it's not going to be overwhelmingly long, I don't think. But that'll be that. Over on the Exploring series, I released a video on good airwaves. Not a massive epic SCP, but a good calm before the storm, because we are entering into a fucking storm of massive epic SCPs.
Wonderful.
This week I worked on SCP 6765, the Demon Ogier and the Bleeding Throne of Maladrow, which has that's the longest title, I believe, that I've ever used in an SCP video. Because my normal formatting of the channel, of the video title, hit the limit. It hit the fucking character limit, so I had to, like, scrunch it up a little bit.
I'll catch up.
Oh, well, it wouldn't normally have been, but I had to put in part 1. So yes, part 1. And part 1 is 2 hours in length. 1 hour and 58 minutes. It's pretty massive.
Someone needs assistance.
Part 2 will not be 2 hours, I'm almost certain. And that's because, I mean, for one, it's a long SCP. It's 29,000 words. But part 1, specifically, I wanted to get, like, all the reading parts done for the most part. Like, any journal entries and stuff like that. All the stuff I'm reading verbatim. I just wanted to get that all out there in one. So then part 2, I can focus on just, like, the exciting action scenes and the big summary at the end to explain everything.
All in a day's work.
So part 1's going to be kind of interesting for people because it's basically just this massive lore dump. It's basically like... It's basically like a novella about this specific, like, time period. Like this fantasy setting novella. That's basically what it is. Which is very exciting to me. I think it's great. I feel like we need to start, like, a separate wiki site or, like, a fandom thing just to keep track of all this, like, lore. But it's really great stuff. I kind of want to, like, run a D&D campaign or something set in this setting. Yeah. So, that's all good. Part 2 is going to be a lot more work than part 1 because I have to do a lot of just writing, summarization, explanation. I have to make sure I understand everything. I'll probably be messaging DJ Cactus more than once for clarification on things. But yeah, I mean, it gets pretty wild. I'll tell you that. It gets pretty wild. And I'm very excited for the next article, whenever that might be. I'm hoping that the time before the next article is not quite as long as the time it took for Demon Ogier, but better eventually than never.
You're toast! Leave it all to me. All in a day's work.
Yeah, so that's pretty much that. And then after we finish part 2 of Demon Ogier, then we're moving right into all the SCP-7000 entries. Which there are many entries. Obviously, I'm not doing videos on all of them, but a fair number. And it feels like eventually, when we do one of these big contests, like, we're gonna get so many entries that just, like, after the contest is done, the whole series is filled up and we have to do another contest. Like, it's gonna get pretty wild if it keeps growing at this rate. But that's good for me, because that's my career. Yeah, not a whole lot to say other than that. I mentioned this last night, but I finally got my theater room. Well, I got the theater mostly done. Things still need to be, like, finished off, and some things need to be, like, mounted and stuff. But otherwise than that, it's perfectly usable. We're having a bit of a theater night tonight for the first 2 episodes of House of the Dragon. I got 8, you know, we're gonna have 8 people in the theater, and it's should be pretty nice. For a projector, I went with the UHZ50 from Optoma. It's a laser projector. Originally, I was like, well, maybe I should go for the new Epson one that everyone raves about. The LS 12,000 or something like that, I think it is. Hey, Abdullah. And that's $5,000, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to spend $5,000 on a projector, because frankly, I don't know how much I'm going to go down there myself to use the theater room, so it necessitates people coming over to use it, and that doesn't happen too often. I was like, $5,000 seems pretty steep. It's not even a true 4K projector. It's still a pixel shift projector. And I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's damn good, but how much better it is than a $2,700 projector, I don't know. So I ended up going with the UHZ50 after someone else recommended it. And so far, I played a little bit of PS5, Horizon Forbidden West on it. And I watched the movie Prey on it. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
A little dusty.
We've got a 110-inch projector screen down there. And it's got HDR. And I mean, I guess it sort of depends on what you're running into it. But like PS5, I thought it looked pretty much as good as playing on my OLED here. Maybe not quite as good in contrast, obviously, but it was still very nice to look at. So I can't complain. Then for the sound system,
By royal decree, out of the frying pan. Steady as stone.
I had a surround sound setup that I bought a few years ago that wasn't like that fancy or great or anything, but you know, it was just like a sort of traditional wired setup. And we had been kind of lazy in putting together this whole finished basement, so we hadn't mounted, or we hadn't put any speakers in the walls or anything like that. And so if I went with that setup, we'd have to have like wires everywhere.
I'll catch up.
Up across the ceiling and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. So I was like, maybe I should just buy a new like wireless setup. And I don't think, like, audiophiles really recommend wireless speaker setups. And they definitely don't recommend, like, out-of-the-box speaker setups. Like, you know, home theater in a box, they call it, I think. But I'm not an audiophile. And I don't know any audiophiles, so... yeah, I went with a wireless setup. It's a Nakamichi wireless surround set, shock wave or something like that. And that ran like 1700 for like the highest end kit for that. Yeah. And it's not completely wireless.
I must leave no stone.
The sort of surrounding little speakers do have to plug into the subwoofers, but nothing runs into the center channel, which is also like the receiver. And the center channel is a big sound bar, so it's actually a sound bar setup. But it's all plugged in, and it's pretty good to my ears. I mean, the room is not really ready for acoustics yet. It's pretty empty. But I was blaring the Doom soundtrack down there, and, you know, my rib cage was shaking, and seemed pretty good to me. So, and I watched Prey on it, like I said, and when I was playing Horizon with it, it was very nice. Like, you could hear things. You could hear little sounds like behind you and stuff. And I've just been playing that game like through my OLED's TV speakers. So that was a big upgrade, just going from TV speakers to that.
Wonderful.
So eventually I will do another sort of house tour. For those who remember, I did one when I first moved in, but things have definitely changed and been upgraded since that. Probably around Christmas I'll do it, once the house is all decorated. The basement's finished. We've got some Christmas trees set up, and the house will be nice and cozy. Maybe I'll do another video. But, yeah, aside from that, I think that's pretty much it.
There's still a long road.
Yeah, so, more RimWorld this week, more Cataclysm, more best games of all time, Genshin, possibly, with Two Brothers Play next Saturday. If he ends up not liking the game at all, then I think we're going to be doing like a retro night, playing a few old co-op games from the best games list and stuff that, I played single players, such as Archon and Bubble Bobble, Gunstar Heroes, things like that. And we'll do that eventually, no matter what. Over on the Exploring series, 2-hour video for Ogier Part 1. If that interests you, I hope you enjoy it. It's a lot of, like, dramatic audiobook reading on my part. But, yeah. Should be a good week all around. Alrighty then. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I will see you fine folks next week.